In a matter of just 28 hours, a whopping 7 sequential earthquakes have rocked the state of Oklahoma, and they all ranged in magnitude from 2 to 5, and thankfully, no significant injuries or damage was reported. However, many were inconvenienced as one quake caused 4,600 residents in northeast Edmond to lose power. Scientists with the USGS have noted a significant rise in induced seismic activity with wastewater injection during oil and gas development. And for more insight, we bring in Dr. Zacariah Hildenbrand, Chief Scientist Officer at Inform Environmental. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And what have you come across in your research regarding the relationship between underground injection wells and induced earthquakes?
Well, there is a growing body of scientific evidence that is illustrating the link between these induced earthquakes, these anthropogenic earthquakes, and underground injection wells. This has been highly documented in Oklahoma, Kansas, in northern Texas. And we also have evidence that shows that the actual stimulation process, the hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking, can trigger these earthquakes in parts of Canada. We know that this is not occurring on a systematic level in that, they're not all underground injection wells trigger earthquakes. And that it is largely dictated by the subsurface geology and also the pressure at which these underground injection wells are shooting this waste fluid into the subsurface.
And is there any proof that hydraulic fracturing can really trigger the earthquakes?
Well, there was a recent publication in Science where they had done some monitoring in Alberta, Canada, that actually did show that stimulation via hydraulic fracturing of unconventional oil and gas wells had triggered these induced events. And so, yes, while a majority of these induced earthquakes are occurring via underground injection wells, there is also precedent of a small fraction of them occurring from stimulation.
And explain to us what these seismic events are and what they have to do with recycling waste.
Yes. So basically, when we're talking about unconventional oil and gas development, again, we're looking at oil and gas production here. And as a result of these activities, you're going to produce a lot of waste fluids. These come back in the form of what are called produced water and flowback water. And this waste is really a complex milieu of naturally occurring radioactive material, inorganic compounds, salts, metals, minerals, and any of the chemical additives that they use to stimulate the well. So obviously there's a tremendous impetus to handle this waste intelligently and responsibly. Now, a majority of this is done through these underground injection wells. So they take this waste that flows back to the surface, take it into trucks, and then take it to an underground injection well, also known as a saltwater disposal well, and then they pump it into a really a deep layer strata, far away from any drinkable groundwater, where it can be sequestered. Now, this has been the primary form of waste disposal primarily because of a simple economics and convenience. However, what we're really seeing is a paradigm shift towards more of a recycling and reuse of this waste. So again, you've got operators now who are taking this produced waste, running it through multi-layer modular filtration systems, and then being able to use what it comes on the back end for stimulation of subsequent wells. So the cost has always been prohibitive before, but you're seeing operators get the cost down lower and lower, so it's becoming more economical and certainly greater environmental stewardship to do it that way as opposed to these injection wells.
Interesting. And so why is the proper management of this waste so crucial?
Well, because again, it's really complicated in terms of the composition. You have heavy metals in there, you have naturally occurring radioactive material, you have chemicals that are known carcinogens. And so to take that waste and simply just dump it into the ground and let it seep into the subsurface, I mean, that is incredibly irresponsible. One method of disposal is, in fact, putting it into they just dig a hole in the ground, they line it with just some plastic lining, and then they pour the solution in there, and then they just let the evaporation take place, and a lot of the chemicals are volatilized by UV radiation. Now, you can understand why that's not the preferred method in that, these liners can rip, any kind of thing can happen. Rain, for example, can wash out these pits, and then you have those solutions leaching into shallow groundwater. So you have these underground injection wells, which again, a majority of which are safe. I mean, they're not contaminating groundwater because there are multiple layers of protective casing that are protecting the aquifers that this process penetrates through. But occasionally, when there is too much pressure and under the right geological conditions, you have this fluid that is lubricating these fault lines, and then these faults slip, and then you have these earthquakes. So again, if we are to practice unconventional oil and gas development responsibly, we have to get better about waste management, and we need to be having a smaller reliance on these injection wells and pushing the equilibrium closer to water recycling and reuse.
Some good information. Thank you so much. That's Dr. Zacariah Hildenbrand, Chief Scientific Officer at Inform Environmental. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.